Folks, welcome on back for another fantastic edition of our weekly workshop here, Traders Talk. Great to have all of our students and members, as always, here just joining us inside our live trading room. Gillis, Fred, Leda, Margaret, John, Barbara, Bob, got Elena, got Frank, got Philip, one of our neutron members here just joining us here today. Uday, John, Bob, all of us here just joining us again inside our live trading room, the Cyber Group, the trading floor, might I say. But great to have all of us back, though, otherwise on YouTube, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, etc. All of our social media streams and handles right down below at Cyber Trading U. As I like to say, be a friend, tell a friend, look to spread the good word here of what we teach, and that is following the big money. So, right out the gate, we just came off of our phase 2 class earlier this morning. We're talking more about just discipline, staying organized as traders when it comes to your step-by-step strategy with getting in, obviously, managing your risk afterwards, but along with that, just handling emotion, right? Handling emotion. So actually, I want to show a little bit of what I taught in that class, not to give you the full brunt of it, but basically, we came off a great class earlier where we discussed Pony, Pony, Pony AI. I think they're in the autonomous driving business. So a bunch of companies over the last year have done pretty well with like the robo taxi, the autonomous driving, obviously Tesla to round out the bunch, but Archer, you got Jobby, the drone stocks, you could say as well, Arcat. But now, at least with this one, we've done pretty well on that trade just a moment ago, Pony AI. So we'll actually have the chance here in this workshop to break down, well, the real move that it made since the market opened up, because we didn't really have the chance to discuss that in our class. What we were discussing more was just handling emotion, making sure that we can kind of cool ourselves down a little bit, just kind of take away the fear, the stress of like the what ifs. And then on the flip side of it, to make sure we don't get too cocky out there, too big ego, too overzealous, excited, and just bull rush into something. And that's what we were discussing right around 11 o'clock, 11:30. Hey, I'll just say it right here for all of our students, as we always do in this workshop. But let me ask Gillis, Fred, Leda, etc., just one more time. When do we normally expect reversals within the stock market? When do we normally tend to see things slow down, pull back, reverse, whatever it may be? Uday, Margaret here saying at and Leto saying at 10:30, right? Well, exactly. And that's where we came into this trade, because in class we saw that this stock was still at the highs. We're like, wow, that's kind of odd. It didn't reverse at 10:30, let alone 10:15, or even on the later side, 10:45. So you figure it's bound to happen sooner than later, right? All right, so that makes you a little bit more patient, a little bit more cautious to just jump in, because normally you'd be expecting a reversal, certainly around 11 o'clock, if not by 10:30. So what happened was that this was chopping around resistance that we had at $9. And the purpose of this, here is to say what I focus on first. I mean, there's more to it than this, but when a stock breaks over resistance and it actually runs from it, like, notice how I'm saying that. When a stock breaks over resistance and it actually runs from it. So not just like a little tiny little nip of the level up like 10, 15 cents. No, we're talking like a run, like 30 cents, 35, 50 cents, obviously the more. So at least here, it finally moved off of 9. I wouldn't really call any of this much of like a breakout. At least the higher it moved off of 9, you would begin to feel confident with flipping that resistance into a support, at least the first time. So coming off of class, that's what we were looking for here, right at 9, bounced up perfect. Now, what happened at $10? Basically, I mean, yeah, it was a pop and then drop. This actually didn't hold support where it could have at 10. Reversal time likely already should have happened by now. So it didn't really hold too nicely as support. This might be the beginning of your real peel back. Needless to be said, though, if it does pull back, then we'll look to see a new support level build. But the more that this keeps nipping and testing resistance, especially right here while we have it, holding a lot better under this level now. It's been containing better. You got this 21,000 share seller out here, another 11,000 on top of that. If you could nip and stab over that level, even coming up around noontime, I feel a hell of a lot better with continuation at noontime, 1 o'clock Eastern. Obviously, the later in the day that you go, the better. But, comparative to like 10:30, 11 o'clock. So it was great to see what we had happen, because the more unexpected thing happened. This actually continued, but at least it rightfully flipped resistance into support. Actually, now at this stage, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, once reversal time's done and over with, that's where I actually feel a bit better. Like, ooh, well, what if it can break new highs? What if it could break resistance again? Um, hey, you know what? On the flip side of that, let me actually just jump back to our other example, Tesla, because that actually did just happen here. Tesla continuing, right? Certainly on the way down. But we were calling this out in our class earlier too. And this was actually the reversal that we were looking for a long. It ended up, nipping back or stabbing back over like 275 as support. It broke below it earlier here. This was a good opportunity to look for a bounce because it was already well after 10:30 in the morning where you should have had it happen earlier. So you figure, well, it's got to happen sooner than later now, right? We're heading into 11:30, so it broke under and over this at 275. So this actually made for a decent start. But if this continues to make lower highs and if it keeps stabbing this as a working support, we had said on the other side of the coin, if it keeps nipping and testing this and then breaking under it, then it's going to continue. Trend's going to continue down. This will become resistance again cleanly. And obviously, easy to say that, but I'm sure the market's dropping as a whole right now. But Tesla made for a pretty good short opportunity here. Continuation, right? All right. Well, the more that this keeps nipping and testing 10 bucks as resistance, continuation, right? It's actually the same exact pattern, just opposite, flipped upside down pretty much, right? So that's what I wanted to start off by going over basically, kind of coming off our phase 2 intermediate based class just earlier, Pony on the way up, Tesla on the way down. Take a look at the market right now as a whole. So market obviously making kind of the same move as Tesla here, broke lower right around 11 o'clock in the morning. Now, obviously more now. Let me go back to the Pony because that one, at least I wanted to discuss the real move from earlier today. So let's go over at least from pre-market here. All right. So for our students, Bob, Chuck, Fred, all of our members here, Adel, Leda, Alicia. Alicia, I got to get back to you right now through email afterwards, but actually got to get back to a couple of our students via email here by today. But let me ask everyone, where do we see resistance right now on this book map page for Pony? Like looking at my page, this picture, where do we see resistance? $8, right? So right there, 18, 19,000 share sell order. That sticks out bright as day since 7 a.m. Eastern time. It's there until the market opens up. So that I like. I appreciate that immediately as a big level to work off of. I would assume it would take a couple of stabs at it and then maybe you can get the pop. Otherwise, though, next question. Next question. You were all correct there. Perfect. What price has the largest spike of volume when you look at the far right column there, CVP? Chart volume profile, the histogram here on the far right side. What price sticks out? The largest spike of volume? 770. Absolutely. So right away, I have two resistance levels here to work with. It's trading under 770 here leading into the open. So, hey, if it can keep pressing up against this, there's a chance for a clean entry over 770-ish. 775. I mean, this sticks out more, but that's the first big level. Then from there, $8, about 19,000 share seller. The only thing I'll ask is because I don't remember this. I tell our students here quite literally, I barely remember what I had for breakfast in the morning. What was the high? What was the open from the previous trading day? The high was 980. The open was at 934. That's a ways away from $8. So those could be price levels I could focus on down the line. Maybe I'll just draw a couple place markers there. 980, the high, 934. All right. Actually, you know what? What I'll do, yeah, this is better. Look at this price here. Look at this candle and look at the closing price. The close, $7.57. There was likely a big transaction that set off at the end of the day on this Thursday, April 24th. So at the price where you see next to close in that fine print, 757. Let me even show you that on the, maybe even the time in sales I could try and go back on. Let's see if I could do that. Just give me a moment. It's easy to say that this stock moved up, but if you had the time to go through your levels, which to be honest with you, I didn't jump into this trade after the market opened until just before, like right before class started. but I missed out on the majority of the move. So, hey, for myself, if I gave this more attention, more time throughout my pre-market, where would I find the best levels? Well, I'd go back on that. That was from what, April 24th, just back from Thursday last week. Yeah, so you could see right at the end of the day, I mean, it even shows larger here on this print, around that spike, but just big spikes of the volume at the end of the day here. This was back from Thursday, the 24th. So let's see, what do we got? See where that closing bell print was, if I can go back that far. What was the time there for? See if I can go that far back. Yeah, there we go. Good. So it even sticks out here, 757, about 221,000 shares getting filled on this one day. So that alone leaves me to say that that could be a nice level to watch for this morning because it's trading right around there throughout the pre-market. This is the actual print at 4 p.m. This could have been just one transaction between a buyer and a seller, not as much an aggregate. But either way, for today, the levels that I would be plotting lines for, I would go $8, which was that iceberg level that we spoke about from the pre-market. 770, a little CVP volume profile level there. I'll just kind of plot that. I'll make these different colors also so you know what I'm talking about when I go through this explanation. But you got the iceberg order there. You got your CVP level right here. Now, otherwise, what was that price? 757. Well, that explains the pre-market, at least heading into the open, because it was holding under that pretty well leading into the opening session. So let's kind of peel back the curtain here, kind of show the masterpiece that was. So basically, that exact price, that 757, that 221,000 share print from Thursday last week, this was holding pretty damn nice as resistance in pre-market. Generally speaking, it was holding right under it, 2 pennies shy. That's clean. I like that. So even before 770 and even before $8 next, this was actually your first level. Now, after the market opened up, the same rules apply. The same song and dance played out that we talk about here. And I mean that like in a good way, because the more that you see the same things play out, then it's going to make you feel more confident just later on today, tomorrow, the next day, the next week. So this is where I'll mention the more that this stock is nipping and testing that same level. You wait the first 5 minutes after the market opens. You're not jumping into anything there. Even the first test here, you could still be a bit skittish on, just expecting consolidation or a false breakout. This could have been a nice entry at first here. If you jump in right over 757, I would be expecting a more volatile pop at first and it pulls back. So there's a good chance that this could be a trade where you get stopped out on. Right place, wrong time. Now, hey, you shouldn't lose confidence on the setup. If you keep doing the same damn thing like 5-6 times over and you're losing money, that's a bit of an issue. I don't mind being here, right place, wrong time, if I try it here on this one instance. What makes me wait versus try this? Because you could tell this kind of had a false breakout here, right? So, why would I try this here if you could see it made a false breakout? Well, hey, new attendee joining us on YouTube. If trading was so easy that we were able to review this in hindsight perfectly and apply it perfectly when we're trading, come on, you wouldn't have a need to be here on a YouTube or a LinkedIn, and I wouldn't have a need to be here behind a desk as well. So, of course, there's always room for error. There's always imperfection with any style of trading or investing. I like to joke, be self-deprecating a bit, but hey, we all have imperfections on our bodies, on our faces. No one more than me when I wake up in the morning. So that's where I'll tell you, it's okay if this chart has an imperfection. One imperfection is not going to ruin the rest of the move. So it ended up re-breaking. If you're there, right place, wrong time, still watch this trade. If it just makes a lower low, then you just move on. Say, all right, that's it. But if it keeps stabbing this, then there's great validation to try the same exact trade again a second time. So obviously, easy to say in hindsight, that's what happened. But hey, whether I take this or not, I'd be taking this no matter what afterwards. So it ends up making this Fausto flag. It's actually a very clean looking like pattern, nice build up here towards the actual highs, popped. Point being is it made a big move shortly after, right? Now, what happened here essentially played out later on at $8. You saw resistance get broken over. It made a pretty decent run after resistance got broken above. So resistance initially flipped into support, broke under and over. So that's kind of your fish hook. That's your entry to try and look for support if you're not in yet. Ran up towards 8. And now I would say I'd probably expect a bigger test of resistance here at $8 than we actually got. But perhaps the reason why I broke over 8 so easily is that we fought around that 757. We fought around the CVP level here at 770. So perhaps this is more easy to say in hindsight. Hey, in the moment, I'd be expecting more of a tussle, more of a fight, but it broke way over it, popped pretty nicely right off the level right away. So guess what? You know what? Resistance flipped into support right away after, continued playing nice. Now heading into 1030, I'd be expecting a clean run up, 1015, 1030. So by the time we started our class, if you're expecting at least the top or a pullback, hey, take the money and run, right? But at least from there, obviously higher lows, it kept going up. So what happened? What led it to go up higher? You could see we had resistance at 850 next, $9, 950. So there's your 50-cent levels for the most part, right? Look at that. That's pretty clean. So you might say, hey, there's a chance for this to run up towards this web of resistance here. It actually started at 10 and at 950 right here. And then later on, we ended up seeing it build up further to $9. So this becomes a bit of a web of resistance. If you're thinking more goal oriented here, there is a chance where you say, all right, well, it might crash into this web of resistance and then eventually fail. So if you hold in towards like $9 and then wait, if you hold in and see if it pops over 9, maybe there's a chance for 950. I wouldn't be as ballsy to look for $10 if you're in from like $8 or 757, because that's a hell of a profit regardless, even if it gets to 9. And more often than not, statistically speaking, more often than not, you should be expecting a bit of a slowdown around 1030. So it's okay to leave money on the table. I think it's more foolish to try and gamble at this stage when more often than not you see pullbacks, or more often than not you see stocks like go sideways moving. So it's okay to leave money on the table here as it tries to pop up a bit more. We went over this in class. That's where that $9 eventually became a good entry level here. It had a small little tussle at 9. Yeah, it broke above it eventually and off of it. So perhaps 9 could flip into support. Now, what made this even better, which I don't think I really discussed as much in the actual class, we ended up seeing new support build up actually, right? Right at $9, 904, about 46,000 shares on the bid, 44. What do they call this? Like a unicorn number, a rainbow number? There's something where they're all the same number there. 4. That's kind of a weird thing there. But, quintuple fours across the board. Now, with that, though, you also have about 50,000 shares on the bid right at 870. So more volume stacked up on the bid. This broke resistance here, it continued. But this became a great trade even off the 9 level. But it only became a good trade after it broke off of it as a working resistance. All of this is not like a clean break. I wouldn't call 8 or 10 pennies above resistance a clean breakout, where we look for a big move shortly after, right? So give me like, hey, 30 cents, 50 cents. Obviously, if it runs very cleanly high up off a level, I'd feel confident on the initial retracement for it to be support. So that's where, at least here, it came back down, $9. Then the bids came in. Easy to say the cookie crumbled well from there. But now at this stage, if you don't get flat out reversal and a drag back down, it might just stay around here. And then perhaps later in the day, who knows? I'm just shooting from the hip here. But, if this wants to push up any higher, what I would want to see is to have these orders on the bid ladder up further. Have them pull from 870 and show up at like 970. You know what I mean? So, if they could ladder up from 870 or $9 right up to like 950, 970, that would help the stock, push up even further, squeeze the sellers out even more. But after a stock like Pony's up 41% today, after going up God knows how much from midway last week, this was moving from 416 from Tuesday, April 22nd. And even before today, from Friday, the end of last week, it hit a high of 980. So break out the old calculator here. Give me a second. I'm not texting. What was that? 980, 416. So just one moment. It's up 135%. That was back from the end of last week, right? And it's up obviously even more today. So you figure, like, all right, well, eventually this thing's got to consolidate again. It had a bad red day on Friday, don't get me wrong, but to have it slingshot all the way back up and break new highs insta, you should expect this to slow down. So that's where this is not a surprise here. And if this just ends its move today where it's at and just breaks lower lows from this point, again, wouldn't shock me. But if you want this to move up more later, then I'd pretty much say that this is a must. This is a must right here. You got to have these orders ladder up, or if they don't ladder up, maybe a new order appears. Get even more bid pressure coming in here to squeeze the sellers out. But that's where I'll say for any of our students inside our live trading room, if they have level 4, then they're going to be able to watch this themselves each and every day, especially right here on this one. But otherwise, we just took a lot of time to go over the psychology behind this throughout our class just earlier. Now, let me ask, if you're joining me in class later on today, if you're inside our live trading room, if you're joining us later on today at 3 p.m. Eastern for our next phase 2 class, just give me a chat back. Let me know. Let me know if you're joining me in class later on this afternoon. Lynn and Randy, Margaret, Barbara, Lee, Wiz, Gillis, Scott, Brian, Grant, Jim. Great. All right. So a lot more joining us here this afternoon. We're going to have the chance to go over a lot further about risk management, goal setting, risk management. Hey, I'm redundant with my catchphrases for a reason, because there's more to it than just breaking through a big level, or hey, when it breaks through a big level, expect a big move. Well, hey, focus on that first, but then we're going to go into the finer details. So if you heard me sound like a broken record player in class in phase 1 from last week, well, that will continue, honestly, later today at 3 p.m. I'm going to keep with my catchphrases, but I'm going to go more into the nitty gritty, going to go more into the special, finer details of it. And there's our retracement right now. So right now live, this thing's starting to peel back a bit more, trying to pull back below this consolidation. All right. So speaking of phase 1, a little housekeeping note here. I got 2 pieces of housekeeping notes right now. As I had initially told you on Friday, the end of last week, more for our members inside our live trading room, and specifically our platinum and diamond students. Stick with me on Wednesday. Wednesday morning, we'll be making an announcement exclusive to you. If you are a gold student, it will not apply to this announcement I'll be making on Wednesday. Of course, we'll give you some more goodies throughout the year if you're a gold student. But platinum and diamond, just stay tuned on Wednesday. Make sure that you're here in the morning. And also, if you're not here, just check your emails. That's all I'll say. But coming off of phase 1, from the end of the phase 1 course from last week, we did it for the month of April, obviously. I was making a point about journaling, right? So as far as students that had sent over their trading journal, I want to give a shout out to 3 students, but I need to be shouting out a hell of a lot more than 3 students. I'd like to, at least. Only 3 students had emailed me their journals from like the weekend into this morning even. So I want to give a quick shout out to our students. I see Michael R. I see Uday S. from New Jersey, I believe. Edison, New Jersey. I always see like New Jersey next to Uday's name, so I'll just remember New Jersey. And then Stephen L. So 3 of our phase 1 students, I was asking all of us, hey, if you journaled your trades from last week, send them over. Take 2 seconds to email it over, right? If you journaled. And for students that didn't journal and they said they didn't, hey, I appreciate the transparency first. But if you were trying to toss a quick one at me there, hey, I don't try and challenge you often, because I don't want to come across rude, because that's never my goal. I'm trying to challenge you in a positive way. I'm trying to challenge you from instructor to student. So I want to give a quick shout out to those 3 students I just mentioned earlier. But for everyone else, please, I would make it a strong point, if you are looking to make money, if you are looking to make more money than you're currently making, if you're losing your shirt and you need to stop losing your shirt, it only gets better after journaling. It's the same thing with dieting. It's the same thing with going to the gym and working out. The more that you're on top of what you're doing, hey, for instance, right? I mean, hey, mental health is everything. I'm a big advocate for mental health therapy. I see therapists, so no shame in admitting that. It's good to keep track of your thoughts. It's good to keep track of your day-to-day doings outside of trading. I'm speaking of, not talking about trading right now. So in terms of life, man, I'll tell you, about a year ago, I felt like my head was like spinning in 1,000 different directions, 1,000 miles per hour. So it took me a little while to become consistent with it. But on Sundays, I'll journal and I'll do like goal setting for the week. Not doesn't need to be so micromanaged every day, but at least going into the week, I have a list of goals and I'll check in on it every single night. The more I'm on top of that, I get more done, and I feel better about it because I feel more organized in my own head. When I stray away from that, I start messing up. So when it comes to journaling, hey, I can't twist your arm to do it. I can't drag you to your desk to do it at the end of the day. Um, I can only tell you that it's going to help you out. We're all adult professionals here. So, uh, I've been with Fausto for 11 years now, right? I've done certain things early on where, I was very loosey goosey about it because I didn't want to come across as like serious and like a dick. Um, but I realized not too many students were journaling. And like when you don't journal, you lose money. When you lose money, you drop out of a program. Well, why are students dropping out of the program, Josh? What are you doing? So, all right, let's get on top of it then, right? So, at least that's where I advocate for the coaching program. That's where I advocate for us to at least meet here every Monday afternoon in Traders Talk, right? So I appreciate Barbara, Abdul, Roberto, Joyce. I got 120 of us joining us live right now inside our live trading room, as well as on YouTube right now too. But keep in mind though, if I can't challenge you and you're not challenging yourself to begin with, how are we ever going to progress? Right? What are we doing this for then? Now, hey, granted, if you look yourself in the mirror and say, I'm not trying to be a big money maker. I'm not trying to like, do anything like too crazy. I'm just doing this for fun. Like it's just getting me through the day. I like chatting with our friends here in the room. Perfect. Then keep at that then, right? I'm not necessarily talking to you as much. I want you to know that. It's not as much of a need to journal if you're just kind of doing this on the side. And there's nothing wrong with doing this on the side. But when you signed up for our class, when you bought the gold stock course, when you bought the, platinum course, what were your goals? What were you trying to do? How much money were you trying to make across the year? Unless if it was like millions and millions of dollars every year, like I'll tell you, it's like probably pretty attainable. And it is attainable to do millions and millions a year, but I just wouldn't, give you as much of the Levitan guarantee on that. But if you're telling me, hey, my goal is 100,000 this year, and like I'm nowhere close to even trying to get to that target, then we got to do better. Like, hey, work with us, in the coaching program, send your trades in. So, again, I want to give a shout out to my 3 students there. And then most recently, I'm seeing Uday's journal. So I'm going to get back to him more extensively on the side because I'm just catching the context of the email right now, Uday. So basically, I will write you back in full pretty much on the side. Not everyone's, feeling as good about trades, right? So if you're a bit frustrated about why you're not there at the right place at the right time at all, let alone even once or twice across the week, then we'll have the chance to break that down together. And definitely through private chat, definitely through the instant chat message, the private chat on the side, right inside our room. So just getting back to Uday there specifically. Now, again, just to finish up on that part of the conversation, guys, again, not to beat a dead horse into the ground here. I'm not, or not to kick a dead horse, whatever the saying is. I can't twist your arm to journal. We're all adult professionals here. So if you are trying to scale up in size, we can't just do that. We have to feel confident with what we're doing. Well, I'd recommend journaling. If you're not making money at all, if you're losing money, regardless of scaling up in size, if you're just losing money, we got to journal. We got to see what we're doing wrong so much, right? So, for everyone else. Now, look what's happening. Oh, again, a big pop back up here on this pony. Let's see. What happens here? What happens here? Nothing new as of yet. Nothing new as of yet. So this could still be head fake. However, though, this might be the moment in time where we see this order ladder up or we get a new bid stepping in, perhaps. Something new may pop up here in the coming moments. It's funny, actually. Quick shout out. Just catching her chat right now. 8 minutes behind, Charlie, and I'm a little late on the YouTube chat right now, but one of our students, one of our very successful traders joining us daily every morning inside our room, Charlene. I want to give her a big shout out. She made her day's pay and hightailed it out of here. And in fact, It's an ever long issue, Charlene, but you've done a great job yourself since joining CTU. Actually, I want to show Charlene's chat that she wrote earlier today, actually, if you don't mind me sharing, Charlene. Trying to twist my tongue with that. Sharing, Charlene. All right, so earlier today, 8:21 in the morning. Charlene's one of more of our pre-market traders. She'll come back for the afternoon at times, work with her in the coaching program. Days pay in the bag, 2 trades scaling in and out on both GLMD and Plug, 2 inexpensive stocks that were popping early in pre-market. So it wasn't the pony that she did well on, but it was the other 2 there. So let's actually get to those. Let's get to those in just a moment. But we'll come back to this trade. This could still be a head fake. This could still just be like a moment where it needs to see support build off 10. Or maybe this could be the moment where those orders ladder up. We'll find out in just a bit there. Let's actually go over to that GLMD trade because that was a total dud. I mean, hey, talk about imperfection. It's not even just imperfection with strategy, but not every stock that's going to be on our watch list will make for a clean run. We hope for them to. We want them to, especially if this has a good order book. But at the end of the day, like when this opened up, or at least after the initial pop, this was garbage. So I was a little, hopeful for this to make a nice run. Obviously didn't get the job done, but what Charlene made money on was early in the morning here, right? So initially made a pretty good breakout. I'll tell you what, Charlene, I'm surprised that you jumped in. If it were to be, you know what, I'm just going to guess, Charlene, you got in either around 240 to 250 here, or you probably waited here at this point because I know you don't like these long wicks. We talked about that recently. Pony's popping right now. Pony's making a big old pop right now. So get back to that pony trade in just a bit. Let's see what happened there in just a moment. But for right now, the GLMD trade. Why was it good? How did it turn so ugly? I'll tell you what, the heat map here is definitely not easy on the eyes. This thing is damn ugly at first. This thing is like being passed around like a hockey puck, right? Look at this thing. Up, down, 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 up. So this was not easy to begin with because the order book was very messy, very ugly. Now, at least off the initial pop, this ended up popping at first, looks bad here on the heat map. Don't focus on the heat map and don't focus on COB to answer this question. At what price do we see a big level on this page? Little deductive reasoning right there, right? So don't look at the heat map. Don't look at the COB column. What price on this page do we have a big level? Answer is on the screen. This is more of a curveball question, but I am being pretty direct with telling you what not to watch. Don't look at the heat map and don't look at the COB column. But where do we see a big level on this page? A bunch of us answering here. A mixed bag of answers. I'm waiting for everyone to write back. Sam says 20,152 shares at 280. Well, remember, Sam, I just said a moment ago, don't look at the heat map and don't look at the COB column, right? So that would be the best hint I can give to you without directly pointing it out. But a lot of our students answered it from just a moment ago. Give a quick shout out to Brian B. First of the punch on it at least, but Debbie Gillis also otherwise saying right around here. And it's from the CVP column, right? CVP column, not COB, not heat map. Again, trying to challenge you a small bit, but right there, like 310, I guess you want to say 308, be my guest. Basically 308, 310. There's definitely a lot of volume being traded right at that price off the initial wave. Simple question here, folks. That big volume spike, predominantly, what color is it? Predominantly, what color is that spike? Green. Green it is. And what do we nickname green as here inside our live trading room? Buying, right? Buying. So what happens if we keep seeing more buying at the same damn price? Well, now let's have our eyes on like the screen altogether. I'll just basically show you. It ended up building up, building up. This ended up failing to make a cleaner push over time, didn't it? This is basically where it tried to make this pop, but never got the job done. Let's talk about the level tests here because it ended up popping initially off of this. It's a fast move up. Let me see. I guess there's an iceberg that pops up here over time at 235, 237. But when you have such tiny orders showing on the heat map here, you can't trust any of these here as far as you could throw them. So what's easy to say is, oh, I guess it starts to build support from here. That's not so easy in the heat of the moment. I just want you to realize that. Um, there wasn't even anything as big. Maybe over time, 270 is starting to build. Maybe over time, this sticks out a bit more here, right? Because we were talking about 310. So let's still keep our eyes on that CVP column. Just keep your eyes on that column as I'm moving the page. Just watch that one column. 250 begins to stick out a little bit. So if that could flip into support, then there's a chance. Let's actually strip the heat map down or strip the heat map away again. Put a line now at 250 or so. It doesn't even come down to it as support. It doesn't even pull back down to it as support at first. So I'm looking for a pullback here. If it doesn't even pull back, then this is easy to say, but it pops over 250 and goes. But there is nothing really there until the very end. Like once it starts to come off of this, you could see it stick out more, right? So you're like, okay, well, if that can pull back, if that's support, great. Now, after it continues to move up a little bit higher from here, maybe you could say 270. 270 starts to show as a larger volume level. This would be the one moment here pretty much at 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:09 in the morning. It finally comes down to that 270, as we had said briefly. And it tries to hold over that. I mean, I guess it tries to brew support a little bit from here. Moves up to 3, a chance to scalp a little money there perhaps. Now, I guess it tries it a second time here, but quite frankly, the more that it keeps testing this as support, it's probably going to drop to 250. So if I'm thinking like just as far as using clean levels, this is the only time where I'd feel confident with using any sort of support. And then if you're looking for the break over the next one at 310, 309, whatever that is, this is where the imperfection within any strategy could show, but you better make sure that you get out before it goes the other way, right? The more that it keeps nipping and testing this area as a working resistance, I'd feel great about continuation. I'd feel phenomenal about a pop. I'd feel phenomenal about this flipping into support. So that is where it's disappointing. That's where it's just not discouraging, but disappointing, where, hey, this could have been a nice entry. It's retesting the same level within just a couple of minutes time here. This could have been a nice potential breakout entry, if not even this. And it's just not getting the job done, right? Again, I said it earlier and I had you answer for me in class, so I won't have you answer it again. But when a stock breaks through a big level, if this is such a big level from earlier in the morning here, that 310-ish area, if we're going to see continuation, then let's see it sooner rather than later. And at the bare minimum, if it's going to take its sweet time, then at least have it flip into support perfectly. So, all right, maybe there's a chance here, right? It breaks over it. It's flipping this into support here. If it's not flying to the next resistance, then what are we doing? What are we spending our time on? Our next resistance was 350. That order got pulled from the book even. So our next larger one even was at $3.80. If this is going to work out and if this is going to make a big move shortly after, TikTok, my friends. I'm not talking about the app. I mean, TikTok in terms of time. This should fly. If the bulls are in control, then this needs to stay over 310, but this needs to fly. And if this isn't flying, then like I had said to you just a moment ago, if it's not going to make a big move shortly after, then it's going to make a big move shortly after, just the opposite way. So I'll tell you, this trade was a little difficult at first because the heat map, like this, heat map here kind of sucked. There was nothing great at first that showed. You had to much more rely on the CVP column. And thankfully, because of that, you're able to find like a couple of different thoughts behind an entry here at 270. And then, hey, I don't mind being there right place at the wrong time, but it's better to realize that sooner rather than later. So, yeah, it's frustrating. It didn't pop higher, but you didn't miss out on much at all. And obviously just dropped way back down lower after. So, it's just the type of trade where you say earlier, like we mentioned in our phase 2 class, more of the intermediate style class I teach. We went over more psychology, mastering emotion. If it's just going to tank and go the other way, then immediately wipe your hands clean. Just be like, all right, this is not the only fishy out there in the ocean that I could try and reel in today, right? I know that we get frustrated when we go fishing and there's millions of fish out there in the deep blue sea and we come up with nothing. Just remember, here, this is not the only fish out there in the sea. If it was, and it wasn't making that expected move, yeah, I'd be pissed off too. Don't get me wrong. I'd agree with you. If this was the only stock out there in the sea out there to reel in, and it's just not making that damn move, hey, there's plenty of other fishies out there in the sea, if you know what I mean. Uday asking here, green, isn't it more like yellow? Oh, yeah, Uday. CVP green. Absolutely. Yeah, we were talking about the spike on the CVP. Yeah, we're all in green from that column. Jim, on the TSLY, TSLL today or Wednesday. Oh, no, I'll do that right now. So Traders Talk here, we'll have the chance to break down any trade that you request. So more or less, Jim, one of our longtime students, asking about Tesla more or less. He was specifically asking about this high-paying dividend ticker, TSLY. TSLY. This is one of those ETFs from a company known as Yield Max. It's based on option premium income data. I don't know how it works. I'm no mathematist, whatever. Just to tell you, at least, this basically makes a very similar move that TSLA makes, right? TSLA. So that's just here where you see Tesla begin to slingshot right now. That's nice. TSLY is mimicking the same move. I believe it's a little bit more volatile compared to the stock. Actually, incorrect. Pardon me. Technically, today at least, TSLA stock is down 2.3%, while TSLY is actually only down 1.19%. So technically, this is down even a little less. If it's more volatile, it'll be down more percentage-wise. Like the TSLL is also an ETF. This mimics Tesla equity. This is not option data, though, based. This is based off of just, I believe, just simply the equity price, spot price, and it's double leveraged. So this goes 2 times compared to what regular Tesla does. Now, if you're just generally asking, where do you find these ETFs? How do I find more out about them? These companies, or I guess I should say FINRA, SEC, whatever, NASDAQ, the exchanges, they gave the green light on these single stock ETFs. Now, what, like 2 years at this point, folks? It's been like 2.5 years, I think, that since they started doing this. All of these different major companies, Tesla, NVIDIA, now they do it on damn near everything. But I think there's even an IONQ ETF. Yeah, a little quantum stock here, IONQ. There's an ETF for this thing. So it's becoming a lot more popularized now. So just basically over the last 2.5 years, Fausto and myself have been finding a lot of these ETFs, single stock ETFs, that simply mimic what the equity does. Now, the more that you're in our room, the more that you're going to hear us talk about them, the more that you're going to be in the know with them. If you want to be more hands-on with your own research, I mean this in the simplest way, not even to say the nicest way. I always want to sound nice, but I want to sound simple even more, just because trading doesn't need to be so complicated. And when it comes to some good old research here, folks, if you haven't used ChatGPT yet, please try and get with the times on it, because it's going to simplify your life. Hey, I got some relatives, immediate family, secondary family that is not as tech savvy. Some of them jumped on ChatGPT. They ended up becoming wizards on the computer all of a sudden, because they found out how to do everything. There's some that haven't tried, and they say, it's too detailed for me, too advanced. This is literally just like a Google search engine, but just 100 times smarter. So that's where, for myself as a trader, I love using good old ChatGPT here. So what I'll do is even ask, if you're interested in Tesla, list the highest paying dividend ETFs for Tesla stock. It actually spits out two different responses. That's how smart it is. So it's going to try and give you two separate answers. You could pick which one it wants to give you. It's going to spit both out and you kind of choose. Right? Look at that. So please, because it's going to save you so much time if you just go on good old chatgpt.com, and it's free to sign up. Just use your Google account. But this is where I learn a lot throughout my weeks and months here by just using ChatGPT. Use this one here. So apparently this isn't even the highest one. There's TSLP, which I wasn't even as familiar with. Probably doesn't trade as much volume. And then TSYY. What the hell is that? Yeah, it's only trading 17,000 shares total. So yeah, you guys still got to make sure that's tradable, guys. Make sure it's trading like, millions of shares a day, I'd say. So that's where TSLL is the most popular of the ETFs. It's from Direction, which is a major ETF company, trading 203 million shares almost right now. The TSLY that Fausto's a fan of, higher, much higher dividend on that ETF. It's trading nearly 3 million shares a day there. So let's just kind of go back on this then. After all this stuff, it's spat at me here. Which of the Tesla ETFs trade the most volume per day? It may not give you a factual number as far as like exact number to the T on average, but it's going to formulate it based on recent data. So out of the ETFs focused on the well, it didn't factor in TSLL. So how about this? We'll even go a step further. It's saying that the TSLY is the one that trades the most volume out of the list that is spat at me. So it's not factoring in the other one. How about this? What about TSLL? There we go. So you might need to kind of teach it a couple of things as far as like kind of additional info. It'll search online for you. It gave me a lot of good information about this. Now, case in point, the markets are always changing. There's always new things being introduced. There's always new restrictions being lifted. I know recently over the last 1 to 2 years, it was the T-3 rule. Now I think it's like T-1 rule. So as far as like settled funds becoming settled again, there's always new policies and things happening within the market that changes things. That's where I'll tell you, hey, simply put, the more that you're in our room, not even in our classes, Jim, because I know like Jim will look to polish up his knowledge by going through our classes once a year, which is great. Jim's been with us for like 5 years, if not more at this point. But he's in our room a lot of the days throughout the week. So, hey, for everyone else, the more that you're in our room and you see us talk about this, talk about that, at least you'll begin to have the curious mind like, hey, Josh, what's that ticker that you brought up the other day? And the more that you're in the know with us, it'll be easier for you to kind of use to your advantage on your own trading. Now, on top of that, like I'd said, I'm personally not Google. So that's where I do refer you to ChatGPT because it is a hell of a lot smarter than anything I could spit out. I always like to say I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. I'm not the brightest bulb of this bunch. I like to trade, and I think I talk kind of good, at least when I have some water here. So that's where at least ChatGPT will be a much better source for you to go through. Now, how do you actually trade it? That's the next step, right? So, how to find everything. Yeah, ChatGPT, great. Well, how do you actually trade it? That is something I can give you a more direct answer on. So let's go over Tesla from the end of last week. I don't think I have. Find out. I don't. All right, let's see if we can pull this up here. I'm going to try and launch a lot of historical data right now on the Tesla Bookmap, just going back to Friday, the end of last week, when it ended up running up. So at least now is where we could focus on Tesla's trade from Friday. Right away, I'd focus on the $5 levels, 270, 275, loosely speaking there, 280, 285, just for now. Because normally you're going to find iceberg orders right off of those prices. So 270, 275, 280, 285. Now, it looks like this blasted way higher from 270 at least. It took a bit of a fight, so it took a bunch of stabs at it. And after building higher lows again, it made the better run. So that's easy to say in hindsight. But hey, for as much as it broke off from that as resistance, for as much buying that came in that led to the squeeze, I would think initially the first test of that on intraday charting as support, there is a good chance for that to hold. Now, I'd say the same at 275, though, right? Because it tried, it ran up well at first, but it didn't really hold it well as support. Either way, it ran way higher. So I'd figure at the minimum 270, 275, each in their own respective chance has the ability to hold as support. I want to go back on the data if I can. It's trying to launch all the back data from the end of last week or so. Let's see how far we can go back, Jim. Now, where I'm using TSLA is that you want to use Tesla price action to trade either or that TSLL or the TSLY. Fausto says it himself. This isn't just Josh saying some stuff and making it up. I'm telling you this because TSLY, TSLL is more algo trading driven, more program algo trading driven, where these iceberg orders are not as easy to see on the heat map. Makes it a hell of a tougher time to try and follow. So let's actually go back on this. It will probably take one more moment for everything to load. It's got to load like the heat map, the data, all that good stuff. Let's see. So even before that data loads, let's actually look at the CVP column because you could see exactly at 270, you have a more polished, sharper spike of volume here compared to the prices before it, and compared to the prices after it for a while. Then right around here builds up a little bit more. There's a little volume buildup, I'll say, kind of between 276-ish and like 277-ish when you look at right here. There's the heat map. Good. All right, so we got our heat map showing at least. Let me just show you the in full version. So 270, 275, 280, 285. It's exactly what we assumed, right? So I say it that way because we didn't necessarily need this heat map to tell me what we already knew, right? So at least now we'll look at the CVP column. And like we'd said, 270. This not as much, but maybe there could be something there. And then otherwise, there seems to be a lot right around here, specifically at the price. We'll round up 7 pennies, 282. Looks like right around $282. So 282, draw a line, big level. I'll go 270. Now, everything else I'll kind of hold off on. I plotted 282 because of this larger spike on the far right side, right? So let's at least just see what happened today. We know it dropped. We know Tesla obviously down right now, but how did that level 282 serve? Was that even clean? Did it provide for any chance to see a bounce? It's tough here because it is after 10:30. You were thinking at least you can get a bounce at some point. We in class were focused at the 275. We didn't even go through this part of it at the time. So more or less, if you were thinking around 282, it begins to cut under and over, like right here, it begins to like push back up and above. If you're patient a little bit, there's a thought behind an entry, but obviously it's the same song and dance, folks. It's the same catchphrases that I say to you. I want you to finish the sentence here for me right now. Gary and Tom and Mike and Wendy and Chris and Laureen and Piyush and John J. I got a bunch of Johns here, but John J. And just mentioning names I haven't called out yet. When a stock breaks through a big level and I jump in, if I decide to jump in, simply put, what am I expecting shortly after I jump in? A big move. Simple as that. Listen, if it's not giving you a big move in the coming minute or minutes after, it's like, okay, then clearly it's not going to make that run. And if it, obviously breaks a little lower from here, that's like your ultimate confirmation. But even as such, the more that this keeps getting poked, it's like, all right, well, this thing's got to crash, right? And yes, that's exactly what happened. It eventually crashed. So there's like maybe a thought, that, okay, it is after or even reversal time. There's a good chance it could bounce. We have a formative volume-based level here. There's a thought where if you wait a little bit, see it cut back over, but you know pretty quickly afterwards, it takes what, 2 minutes, 3 minutes? That's enough time for you to realize. This totally makes sense for it to continue down then. Obviously, the markets were dropping at that time. So, if you're just kind of focused on like the SPY, it's going to be tough for Tesla of all things to swim upstream. But that's just where, of course, dropped off with the market there. Uh, hey, with TSLA, that's where on TSLL, if you're trying to mimic a potential bounce, that was at 11 o'clock in the morning. I guess where Tesla was trading at that $282 price, TSLL was trading at like 1020s, 1022, 1023, 1020-ish. Same thing. Same thing happened. If you're day trading this, you better be getting out by the time Tesla breaks back below 282. That's all. It's okay to take that trade, guys. It's okay to take a loss there as long as it's very small. It's like, all right, wasn't the right timing, obviously. It was even after 1030, but clearly there's more of a downtrend than we thought. That's it. Now, TSLY, though, is the one that pays the higher dividend. So this isn't one I'd be jumpy to trade. This is one I'd be jumpy to buy and hold like Fausto's currently doing. Fausto mentioned it himself, right? Even earlier. When you jump into these, you do have to make sure you try and get a pretty good entry point on it because you are looking to hold on to it. It's okay to be down on a swing trade or investment, right? But you don't want to just jump in. Obviously, if it pays a very high dividend, each month, then of course there's great reason to attempt it. But if you were looking at Tesla price action, even ones now this thing, Fausto was pointing out even earlier that we had resistance at $300, big iceberg there, $290 before that. So if you're seeing Tesla fail to flip this into a support, this area, then I wouldn't be as keen to just take TSLY and just hold because you might be able to get more shares at a lower price, right? So you still want to be very strategic with your investment with where you're jumping in. But if this pays a very high dividend, of course, it's gonna be very beneficial to you over time, but you never want to just bull rush into a trade. Look at this even. Oh my God. Are you kidding me here, guys? Look at this. We just fell into a pile of gold. I think we just fell into a pile of gold. One more time for the crowd, folks. When a stock breaks over resistance and it runs off of it afterwards, what would we expect that resistance to try and flip into? Certainly the first time I'd want it to, but even after it shakes around, if it didn't at first, I'd want it to do this over time. Support. Look how clean this resistance was. Are you freaking kidding me? Then this is back from the election, the Trump pump, and it ended up pushing upwards. But why did it not hold as support? It could have. It could have right away here. Now, there could be a multitude of reasons why it didn't, obviously. Markets were dropping off at that time, the tariff situation, China, blah, 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 blah. All right, well, that's fair. It obviously pulled back. This was not the right time to see this strong resistance flip, even though I would think it could be. But if the markets are down, tough to have anything swim upstream. But it ended up making a much better push over time. And now, if this wants to go back to 350 or even around here, then let's have it play nice around this to be support. Guess what? Just got tested a moment ago, or tried to get tested a little while ago, getting closer, right around that 270, right? So we're going to finish up there, folks. Traders Talk right now. We normally go until 1 o'clock. Wanted to finish up with at least that for Jim. But if you're looking for TSLY, case in point, focus on the Tesla long-term chart. If you're just day trading, then just use TSLL to trade. But no matter what, you're making your decision-making off of Tesla price action here. That's all. All right, folks. Hey, we're going to finish up for the meantime for Leda, for Charlene, for Warren, for any of our members normally joining us on YouTube. Hey, if you have not followed or subscribed to us just yet, be a friend, tell a friend, hit the follow or subscribe button down below. But, spread the good word of what we teach here at CTU each and every day. Normally, we're inside our live trading room, but we stream in the morning. And going forward, actually, we're back on in the afternoons with our streams, with our afternoon meetings. So I'll actually be back at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. If you're joining us on social media, we'll do a second meeting of the day here coming up at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, basically rescanning the market, seeing what else there is to trade heading into the final, good trading hour of the day, and we'll go from there. All right, folks. But otherwise, I'll catch up with everyone inside our live trading room in just a moment. We'll get the scans back moving again. We'll see what else is out there, at least in our room. Talk to you all soon.